So anyway, we have an email this week from our great friend, the great Aussie from Down Under, and the host of the TMI podcast, Tristan.
Oh dear.
Hello, Strixus and Davlen. Okay. I have 2 Disney songs to mention. Keep them in mind because this is a question to follow. Oh boy. The first song is Pink Elephants on Parade. I don't think I'm drunk enough for that song right now.
I don't think I've been drunk enough all semester for that song yet. Which is saying something.
Quite. And the second song is The Walrus and The Carpenter. I haven't heard that one in a while.
The walrus and the carpenter were walking across the sand. The beach was white from side to side, but much too full of sand.
My question. How do you feel about Disney dumbing down the adult content in their films? While I like the 2 above songs, the first one had a drug trip as the animation, and the other one is about an oyster genocide. Films also used to include smoking from Pinocchio, tree molestation from Snow White, hiding behind a rock mermaid nudity from Little Mermaid. Nowadays, I doubt any of these scenes like this would even be included in the films. Do you think this dumbing down is a bad thing? Is it protecting children? Or is Disney protecting themselves from crazy parents? That's it from me, Tristan. You want to take first shot at this?
Okay, sure. On the one hand, I would say that the movies have been significantly dumbed down. On the other hand, a lot of the cartoons that Disney is producing on network are actually really adult. All I have to say is go watch about 3 episodes of Phineas and Ferb and tell me that's a kid's show primarily.
Or SpongeBob, for that matter.
Yeah, SpongeBob
more,
isn't Disney, it's Nick.
I know, it's Nick. I keep forgetting.
Yeah, but, and yeah, and then, of course, there's Pixar. And if you want to see some really adult things slipped into movies, go watch a Pixar movie.
Or DreamWorks, for that matter, too.
Yeah.
I think what they're doing more and more is they're trying to cater to the whole audience by basically doing a kid's film, but slipping in enough adult over the head of the children jokes that they keep the parents interested in the movie since they're there.
Hey, I mean, it's not to say that hadn't worked for Hasbro. Bronies. And, you know, I mean, I gotta say that, yeah, it's one of those things that people kind of forget is that this isn't anything new, by the way, this whole idea of Disney being afraid of, you know, putting out movies that are too adult. If anybody remembers The Black Cauldron, the first Disney movie to ever get a PG-13 rating.
Hi, I have it. I love
yes,
that
so do
movie.
I
even played the computer game.
There were people who were terrified that this movie was gonna, you know, ruin Disney because, oh my god, it got a PG-13 rating, and Disney almost didn't even put it out because of the rating.
It is a really dark film.
Yes, but then compare it to, you know, things of the same vintage, Secret of NIMH, and it looks like Sunshine and Daisies.
Or even An American Tail.
Yeah, American Tail's pretty dark too.
What I find more interesting is one of
or
the
Land Before Time.
Very true. There's a lecture coming up in the series I'm watching on the Disneyfication of fairy tales. And how fairy tales themselves were actually not really meant for children up until about the 20th century.
Well, I mean, cartoons weren't meant for children originally. I mean, yeah, you have to look back at the stuff made during the 1940s that was shown in theaters during, like, normal rotation. I mean, most kids who were watching those cartoons in theaters wouldn't have gotten most of the jokes, especially not the Warner Brothers stuff.
What I think is more down to is the simple fact that in society today, the line between what is and what isn't for children continues to blur all the time. And the fact that children themselves are slowly being... It's one of those things to where they're being treated as with kid gloves, to use the phrase, and also being not so catered to as more the adults who are paying for the items.
And the funny thing is like, we can show them all sorts of violence. Go watch, regular Saturday morning cartoons. But heaven forbid there's 1 inch of skin shown in the wrong place. On a woman.
I don't know. Have you seen some of those Yu-Gi-Oh cartoons?
That's something else entirely.
From Japan.
Yeah, Japan has completely different mores when it comes to, dealing with nudity. And nudity is just not as taboo a topic there.
The United States seems to be the primary place where the Puritanism has saturated into
because
all
our
areas.
country was founded by the religious fanatics that other countries kicked out.
And you only really see that kind of conflict here between kid and what is kid, and the idea that trying to make something in the same medium that these kids grew up in, and seeing that this medium is not specifically for children. This thing applies to not only cartoons, but to animated movies and to video games, which are all
and
considered...
comic books.
And comic books that are all seen as for children.
Which is really weird because, even if you had, checked 20 years ago... Grumble.
But I think overall, it's the idea that not everything in life has a happy ending. And sometimes the ending that life actually brings is more interesting than the happy ending version that you would think would come out of it.
Happy endings are overrated.
Sometimes it's the interesting ending that's better than the happy ending.
Yep.
You see that a lot more in books, comic books, video games, cartoons. They don't always go for the obvious ending. Sometimes they give you an interesting ending that's better than just going with the conventional.
To give Disney some credit, Tangled and The Princess Frog both actually managed to be a bit more adult. And I was rather proud of it.
I think more and more it's just the idea that the audience is growing up. And a lot of times they still haven't found that balance to where if they want to cater to their kids, that's one thing. But if they're trying to cater to family, they need to make sure they understand that audiences have grown up. You can't just go always for the lowest common denominator in order to sell something. You have to also entertain the people who are stuck going to this. Otherwise, they're going to not buy this later when it comes out.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what every single medium is about, is selling something.
Compare, how parents felt about Sesame Street when you and I were growing up, Davlen, to how parents felt about Barney.
Or the electric company.
Oh, well, yeah, the electric company.
Or HR Puffin stuff.
HR Puffin stuff. The cats that my mother had when I was little who were older than me, were named Witchy Poo and HR Puffin stuff.
Or even look at shows that were actually considered a family show that had a lot of adult jokes in them, like The Muppet Show.
Yeah, or look at one of the first primetime cartoons The Flintstones, which wasn't a kid's show.
But we digress. Thank you for the emails, Tristan. I'm sure me and Tristan probably give an entire lecture on this.
Lecture? I could teach a semester on this.